Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Darian and today we're going to be talking about my top books of 2025. So 2025 was a year, it certainly was, and I feel like everyone was kind of struggling in 2025 and that definitely included me. And that definitely included my reading in 2025 because since I started regularly reading again, this was the worst year I had in terms of ratings. Normally when I film my best books of the year video, I have so many books to choose from and I'm like having a hard time narrowing it down to 10. This year, in the year of 2025, I had 9 5-star books. I only had 9, so spoiler alert. The number 10 book on this list is a 4.75. It was almost a 5-star, but normally I have trouble narrowing it down from all the 5 stars. And now I was like hoping for one last one before the year ended. It did not happen, but yeah, so that does mean if you've been watching my best of the year videos since I started my channel in 2020, which is probably like, I don't know, 2 of you. Every year I have done this like honorable mentions segment, and if you know, you know. If you've seen it before, you know the thing I do for my honorable mentions. But this year I didn't have enough honorable mentions because my honorable mentions always had 4.5 and 5-star books in them, and I like barely had any 4.5s either. So I'm just gonna quickly mention some honorable mentions. I apologize that it's not in the normal way I do it. If you miss it, let me know and I'll bring it back next year. But do I need to retire that? Maybe this is a sign I need to retire that. This is in no particular order. These were all 4.5 stars. But the first honorable mention I had was The Message by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I read this near the beginning of the year and I just remember the writing being so great in this book. It was the first time I had read from Ta-Nehisi Coates and I definitely want to read more from him. Then very different vibes. I have Bride and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. I gave both of these 4.5 stars. I did like Mate a little bit more than Bride, but I just had so much fun with these. I love Ali Hazelwood and these were just so fun. I don't know what to tell you. Next we have probably the most fun book I had this year. The most fun reading experience I had, and that was Sky Daddy by Kate Folk. Yes, this is about a woman who is attracted to planes, and I just had such a fun time listening to this book. I would listen to it on my commute and I would just be on the bus like smiling. I couldn't stop smiling. I loved this, and this book is ultimately about friendship and I thought it was kind of beautiful. I don't know. And then my last honorable mention is probably the most surprising for me, and that is Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. I read this for a certain video I am currently working on that I'm just gonna keep mentioning in every video I'm doing, but I read this recently and I think this is my favorite mystery thriller that I've read. And the caveat I always give is that if you are a seasoned mystery thriller reader, you would probably read this and see everything coming and probably think I'm silly for loving it so much, but I don't read a lot of mystery thrillers, so this really got me. I loved it. I just loved all the reveals and I thought it was great. So yeah, so those are my honorable mentions, and now we can get to the top 10 books that I read in 2025. So I did put this list in order. The ones in the middle could kind of be rearranged, but like my top 3 are definitely my top 3. This is definitely number 10 because it is the only 4.75 in this list, but that is Oathbound by Tracy Deonn. Now this is the first book in the Legendborn series that I did not give 5 stars. This is the 3rd book in the series, and I mean I can't really talk about this book without spoiling anything because it is the 3rd book in a series. But the first book, Legendborn, follows Bree, who recently lost her mom in a tragic accident, and she goes away to this like early college program and soon kind of discovers that there's like monsters and stuff living on campus, and there is this like secret order that is descended from Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, and she is somehow involved, and she thinks that maybe her mother's accident wasn't an accident after all, and she was also involved in this group somehow. And I mean I love this series so much. The first, I think Bloodmarked, which is the 2nd book, is still my favorite in the series. This one wasn't quite a 5-star for me. I did find there were some pacing issues. I mean, it is a big book, and this is also one of the only books I tabbed this year, but I did find the middle, like 200 pages, a little too slow. But I love Tracy Deonn's writing. I love everything she explores in this series, especially the themes of grief and generational trauma and racism, of course, and I just love it. I love this book. I love Brie. I love Selwyn Kane. That's my man. That's my man. I love him so much. And I'm just so excited to see. I'm pretty sure the next book is the last book, so I don't know if I should say I'm excited. I'm really scared. But I thought this was a great addition to the series. Okay, number 9. I feel like this is quite an unpopular opinion. I feel like a lot of people did not like this book, but I loved it. And that is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. I mean, maybe it's because I read this when I was sick and I just kind of gobbled this up, but I thought this was great. I thought this was so much better than Just for the Summer. I'm sorry. I know everyone loves that book the most, but I thought this was way better. It follows these two characters, Xavier and Samantha, I think. Xavier? Samantha. Wow. I love when I can remember things. Xavier is a vet and Samantha works for like a mustard company or something. Is it mustard or mayo? I don't remember. And she meets Xavier because she finds this, I think she finds a stray cat who is in need of surgery, and she goes to Xavier's vet clinic and she says, "Can you help this cat?" And he says, "Well, the surgery would be really expensive, so honestly it's probably better if we just put the cat down." And Samantha says no, and she raises the money for the surgery, and he's like, she's got charisma. And then they have this like wonderful first date together, but then Samantha reveals that she's moving back home across the country because her mother is suffering from dementia, and so she's moving back home to help out her family and help out her mother. And Xavier is heartbroken because he's like, "Oh my god, this is like the best first date I ever had and you're leaving already." So they have this long distance relationship, and obviously like every Abby Jimenez book, there are deeper topics. I mean, her mom having dementia is a huge theme in this book, and just everything that her family is going through. Obviously it's difficult for her and her family to deal with this, and I thought Abby Jimenez handled it so well. And I particularly really liked, and I know some people had a problem with this part of the book, but I really liked exploring how her dad was handling it. I thought that, I don't know, I just really thought that was interesting, and it did make me cry by the end. I really loved Xavier. He was a good boy. He was such a good boy, and I just loved this. I flew through it and I thought it was great. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I thought it was great. Oh, and I know people didn't like all the mentions of how Xavier looked like Rhysand, but it only happened in the very beginning of the book and then they never mentioned it again, so it didn't really bother me that much. So my number 8 book of the year is Several People Are Typing by Calvin Kasulka, I think is how you say his name. And this was just so... I feel like I'm so bad at describing these books because I just want to like scream when I think about them. But this was one of the most unique books I've ever read. It is so quick to get through. I could have easily read this in one sitting, but because I started it at work at like 8 p.m. it took me 2 days, but you could easily read this in like an hour or two. But this is written entirely in Slack messages following the characters that work in this office together. And at the beginning of the book, the main character, I think his name is Gerald, he reveals to the group that his consciousness is stuck in Slack and he is not in his physical body, and everyone kind of takes this as a joke and they're like, "Ha ha ha, you just want to work from home." And he's like, "No, I'm actually in Slack." And the places this book goes, it was just so interesting, and I never predicted where it was going. I also thought one of the best parts of this book was this whole book is written in Slack messages, and by a few chapters in, if you took away the people's names from their messages, I think I could easily tell you who was talking. Like, each character felt so distinct and so real, and I just had such a good time reading this. I loved the commentary on like capitalism and productivity and work culture and hustle culture and, you know, work-life balance, and oh my god, it was just so crazy and so fun, and I really, really loved it. Okay, next we have probably the most beautiful cover of the year, and that is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. This was a very highly anticipated book because it was supposed to come out, I think, maybe 3 years ago, and it just kept getting pushed back, and then finally this year it came out and I adored it. I did like it more than The Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which is her other book. There was just something about this that worked better for me. You're following this girl named Sarah who is a magician or a witch. Is she considered a witch? Yes. She's a witch, but when she was younger, she used up most of her powers to bring back her, is it her great aunt? Yes, her great aunt. She resurrects her great aunt, and that uses up almost all of her powers, and also like kind of outcasted her because you're not supposed to use your magic to bring people back from the dead. And so she just kind of lives her quiet life in this inn with her great aunt, and also just like this kooky cast of characters. And one day this guy named, what's his name? Is it like Luke? Oh my god, it is Luke. Wow. I'm so amazing. This guy named Luke ends up at the inn with his little sister, and their paths cross and they kind of have to help each other with different things. And I loved this so much. It was so sweet, so charming. I mean, if you loved The Secret Society of Irregular Witches, you will also love this, but this one, like, I think I just connected with the characters more. I loved Sarah as a character, and the pressure that she puts on herself I found very relatable. And I mean, my favorite character is obviously Nicholas. I love him so much. I need him to have his own book. He is just so amazing. I love him. And yeah, this book definitely got me crying by the end. It got hit a little too close to home, but I really loved it. I thought it was just great. And this is definitely a perfect like transition from summer into fall time read, in my opinion. Ugh, it was just great. And then next we have, what number are we at? Number 5, I think? Number 6? I think we're at number 6. So this book was actually my first 5-star that I read in 2025. It took until April to get my first 5-star of the year, but that was The Final Strife by Sarah El-Arifi. This is the beautiful Illumicrate edition. Look at her. I got the whole set because I loved this series so much. I actually read the whole trilogy in 2025. Very impressive, I know. And this follows this empire where the classes are divided by the color of their blood. So the lowest class are the ghostings. They have clear blood. They're essentially treated as slaves. When they're born, they get their tongues and hands cut off so that they can't communicate with each other or cause any uprisings or anything like that. So they are not treated very well. Then we have the dustings. They have the blue blood, and they're like lower to middle class citizens. They're not treated as badly as the ghostings, but they're still, you know, they're not seen in the highest regard. And then we have the embers with the red blood. They hold all the positions of power. They kind of make all the big decisions in the empire, and you're following 3 characters who each have different colored bloods and how the empire affects them in this way. And especially you're following Sila and Anor, whose paths cross, and they were part of this resistance movement when they were babies. And I just love this. I found the world so interesting, and the atmosphere was great. And I haven't read from Sarah El-Arifi before, and I really loved her writing. I thought the world building was great. Like, I felt like I could picture everything so clearly, which is something I do struggle with in some fantasy books, but I could picture this world so clearly. I loved the characters. Anor, one of my favorite characters ever. I love her so much. And The Final Strife is my favorite book in the series. I did find the series kind of got worse as it went on, but I still liked all the books. But this first book was just great, amazing, show-stopping. I just loved it so much, and I feel like it isn't hyped enough on BookTube or Book Talk or anything, so definitely highly recommend y'all check this out, especially if you like fantasy, because why aren't you reading this? Okay, that was number 6, so this is number 5, and it is the first Emily Austen on this list, and that is Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead by Emily Austen. I really found my love for Emily Austen this year. I read Interesting Facts About Space, I think that was last year, and I really enjoyed it, but this one was like, well, we'll talk about another one later, but this one and another one were like so just amazing to me. This is about this girl. I think I've mentioned this before, but I always love the main characters' names in her book. So the main character in this book is Gilda. She can't stop thinking about death. Desperate for relief from her anxious mind and alienated from her repressive family, Gilda responds to a flyer for free her free therapy at a local Catholic church where Father Jeff assumes she's there for a job interview. Like, if that doesn't sound interesting to you, I don't know what does. So the whole book you're just in Gilda's head as she is working as kind of a secretary in this Catholic church. And she is vehemently an atheist. She's also a lesbian, and she thinks about death a lot. And that's basically all you need to know in this book. Obviously, there are trigger warnings for like depression, and suicidal ideation, and just thoughts of death. But I love Emily Austen's writing so much. I find she writes about these difficult topics so well because they make you feel sad. She makes you feel sad one second and then she has you laughing the next second. And I thought Gilda was just such a relatable character. There was one line in this book that it might be my favorite line I've ever read. And I'm not gonna say it because first of all, it would probably be kind of triggering, but also I feel like it would sound weird without the context of the book. So I'm not gonna say it, but just know that there's a great line in this book. And there's also like this mystery aspect to it too. I won't get into that either, but I just thought this was great. I love Emily Austen. And I also highly recommend the audiobook. Whoever the narrator is for her audiobooks does such a great job and like gets her voice so well. So I'm just gonna love everything Emily Austen writes, I think. Number 4 is a book with an equally long title, and that is One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This. I always get the title mixed up with Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead, but it is One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This by Omar El-Akkad, and this is part nonfiction, part memoir. I mean, I know memoir is nonfiction, but he's a journalist and he writes about his own life and the story of his family immigrating to Canada and then to the US from the Middle East. And he also writes a lot about Palestine, and he kind of gives context to how the events of Palestine came to be. And he really criticizes this idea of empire and also how especially the left has responded to the genocide in Palestine and how just people are falling for propaganda. He goes into so many topics in such a short book, and I thought he did it so well. I feel like there's no way I could describe this book that could be even like a 10th as good as he does in the book. So if you're gonna take any recommendation from my list, I think it's this one. I think everyone needs to read this book to better understand the genocide in Palestine, but also I feel like it's a masterclass on empathy. And I wish I had a physical copy because there were so many quotes that I just kind of like stopped me in my tracks, and while I was reading this book, I had to stop and like really think about what I just read a lot. And it's definitely a book that I want to own physically so that I could go back to it. I just want to read this one passage that I took a picture of, but there was one passage where the context is that he was talking about how people criticize Palestinian resistance and how, you know, you can't fight violence with violence, or you can't respond to violence with violence. And so he says, "Where's the Palestinian Martin Luther King? I've heard said on more than one occasion, never accompanied by any self-reflection as to what kind of society necessitates a man like that, nor what that society ultimately did to him before his posthumous veneration. The implicit accusation is that certain people are incapable of responding to their mistreatment with grace, with patience, with love, and that this incapacity, not any external injustice, is responsible for the misery inflicted upon them. But Palestinians do respond overwhelmingly with love, just as the indigenous populations of an entire hemisphere, subjected to the largest genocide in human history, responded overwhelmingly with love. Just as the Black communities in much of the United States, a country that quite simply would not exist in its current form were it not for the theft of their labor, responded overwhelmingly with love. Just as every people everywhere deemed acceptable collateral in service of the empire's interest responded overwhelmingly with love. Today I watched footage of a man kissing his son's foot as he buried the body so torn apart by the missiles that the foot was one of the only pieces the father could find in the rubble. Tell me this man doesn't know love, hasn't been made to know it in a way no human being should." It's passages like that that really just made me stop and really think about everything the Palestinians are going through and have been going through, and I just think this is required reading for everyone. I think everyone needs to read this book. I definitely want to go buy myself a copy, and I don't think there's anything that I could say that would do the book at all any justice. I think you just have to go pick it up and read it. Like, this was the most necessary book I felt like that I had to read in 2025, and I'm just so glad that it exists and that it is getting pretty popular, but still, I think everyone should read it. Okay, now we're getting to the top 3, and number 3 and number 2 are tied for the books that made me cry the most. This year. I do have footage of me crying at this book, which you will see in a video that I'm working on. Haha, how many times am I gonna say that? But that book is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Everyone was loving this book, and I was a little nervous because, so I have not read her past few releases. I didn't read Carrie Soto and I didn't read Malibu Rising. I love Daisy Jones and the Six. I thought it's one of my favorite books ever. I just love it so much. But Evelyn Hugo, I was pretty disappointed by, and I know everyone loves that book. So I was a little nervous about this one when I saw that everyone was loving it. I don't know. I was just like, is this another Evelyn Hugo situation? No, it is not. Oh my god. This book follows Joan, which is such a great name. Nobody's named Joan anymore. And she is one of the first female astronauts working for NASA. And the way this book is told is actually diabolical, because the very beginning of the book, you're following Joan on her like group from NASA's first space mission, like actually going up into space. And then things kind of start to go wrong, and then you go back to when Joan was younger, as she's training to be an astronaut, as she is meeting the different people in her cohort, as she meets this woman in her group, and they start this relationship. And during the whole book, it keeps going back to present time when things are just going wrong on their mission, and it's not it is just so, the way she wrote this I just want to talk to her, because how could she do that? It was just, I cried so much. You're gonna cry, like you're gonna cry. Everyone cries reading this book, and you're gonna cry. If you don't cry, then I don't know. I loved it. I thought the writing was great. I love books that really make you think about like humanity and your place in the world, or your place in the universe, I guess. And the very end of this book was actually cruel. It was pretty cruel of Taylor. This made me so excited for anything else she releases, and I thought it was great. I flew through it. It was just so great. So definitely believe the hype on this one, because it's so great. Okay, at number 2, this is the book I read the most recently, I'm quite sure, and that is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. And I know a lot of people are reading this right now because the movie just came out. I still have yet to see the movie, and I'm honestly terrified, because the grip this book had on me, this is one of the most difficult portrayals of grief I think I have ever read. If you don't know, this book actually follows Shakespeare and his family, but Shakespeare is never named in this book. You, like, based on context clues, it is quite obvious that it is Shakespeare, but you're mainly following his wife and his children, particularly his son Hamnet, who in real life died very young and was the inspiration for Shakespeare writing Hamlet, which is probably his most famous work ever. But the way, again, I think Maggie and Taylor got together and said, what is the most diabolical way I could write my book? Because the way this is written, like, you go into the book knowing that Hamnet will die, but I thought this book would be written, like, I thought he would die at the very beginning of the book, and then the book would be about the aftermath of his death. No. Maggie makes sure you get to know Hamnet very well before anything happens to him, and she definitely had to take some creative liberties, because obviously we don't know the exact story of how Hamnet died and what his family's reaction was to it and everything like that. But she really made sure that you would care about every person in this family. You would care about Agnes, you would care about Hamnet and their other children. You would not care so much about Shakespeare, which I think is the point, but oh my god. Oh yeah. This was, I mean, it was beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful books I've ever read, but it was so hard to read. I never want to read it again, especially near the end. It had me, I read the last 30 pages over several days, because I would just read a page or two and then I would have to stop because I was crying and I didn't want to read anymore. Like, this really had me in a chokehold. I loved it, but I hated it. I just don't want to read it ever again. Every time I think about it, I just want to cry. And I'm very scared to see the movie. I will see it, but I've heard it's a great adaptation of the book, which scares me. So I know this came out a while ago, but if you need an excuse to read it, and then I guess see the movie. And then maybe like go to therapy. And then finally, my #1 book of the year, you'll never guess. You'll never guess what it is. Could it possibly be the book I read twice this year? I don't know, but that is We Could Be Rats by Emily Austen, of course. I think I can officially say, I'm still a little hesitant to say this, but I think I can officially say this is my new favorite book of all time. Can I say that? Can I say that? I don't know. I feel like I'm letting Stranger Dreamer down, my tattoo. You can kind of see my tattoo through my shirt. Oh my god. But yeah, I mean, what is there to say that I haven't already said about this book? I mean, like I mentioned before, Emily Austen has great main character names. So the main character in this book is Sigrid. So definitely, before I speak about this book, trigger warnings for depression, suicide, mentions of suicide. There are also mentions of drug use, addiction, and sexual assault in this book. So just be wary of that before going into it. But you're following Sigrid, who at the beginning of the book, she has decided that she wants to take her own life. And so the book is written as her suicide note attempts. So it'll be like attempt 1, attempt 2, but it's not the suicide attempts, it's the suicide note attempts. You get to know Sigrid and her life and how she kind of got to this point through her notes, and a huge focus of the book is her relationship with her sister. What is her sister's name? Margit. I don't want to say too much about this book because the way this book is written, it's one of the reasons I love it so much. About halfway through the book, the focus of this book kind of changes, and I thought it was genius. I thought the way Emily Austen decided to tell the story was just like, I don't have the words. I thought it was stunning, and this is one of those books that it feels like she wrote it just for me. I feel like I connected to both Sigrid and Margit on a very deep level, and it explores, I mean, obviously, I think all the main characters in Emily Austen's books are lesbian, so Sigrid is a lesbian. It explores her queer identity, it explores her depression, anxiety, her relationship with her best friend that she had that kind of, you know, things happen with, and I feel like I sound like an idiot talking about this because I don't know how to put into words what this book means to me. And like, if you read this and you didn't like it, you're not allowed to tell me because I just love this so much. It's more than just like a book I love. It's so important to me and so impactful, and I definitely want to reread it again and again and again and again. But like I said, it definitely gets heavy. Like it's not a fun book, but again, Emily Austen manages to blend heavy topics with a bit of humor, definitely dark humor, and I just think she writes books just for me. I think she does, and I'm very scared to read her new book, which comes out this coming week, and I had an arc of it and I still haven't read it because it's about a librarian who had a mental breakdown, and I don't know I don't know what that's gonna do to me. I also met Emily Austen this year. I'm surprised I haven't mentioned that, but I met her this year in Ottawa and she signed all my books and she was great. She is just so, like, listening to her talk she's so intelligent. I love her. And I love this book, and I'm hoping to get my rat tattoo hopefully soon, maybe this year, we'll see. But this is by far my favorite book of the year, my favorite book ever. It's on another playing field for me. It's just so amazing. Okay. I've been talking for a long time, but those are my favorite books of 2025. Let me know if we have any favorite books in common, or if you have read any of these, what you thought, or did you get any recommendations from this video, or are there books in your favorite that you think I would like based on these books? Just let me know all of that. And if you watched till the end, of course, leave a rat emoji. What else could there be? But yeah, let me know all that stuff down below, and thank you guys so much for watching. I will hopefully be having my worst books of the year coming out soon, but I wanted to get this out because I know this is a very popular video in the season and I wanted to make sure I got my video out, so hopefully this isn't too late. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon with another video soon. Bye!